Introducing YouTube memberships, a fun way to support the channel while getting some exclusive perks. Click the join button to become a member now and get benefits like badges next to your name on videos, behind-the-scenes photos, advantages during the live trivia game, discounts on merchandise, private one-on-one video chats, the ability to request future video topics, and exclusive 8 to 10 minute videos on the history of the NFL. And now, on with our feature presentation. I want you to imagine this scenario. You're going out grocery shopping for your family. As you're leaving the house to get into the car to get the groceries, your wife says, in front of you and your kids, don't forget when you go out to get some honeycombs, because we're all out, and I love eating those every day for breakfast. So you go to the store, and along with the usual groceries that you're getting, you get honeycombs, just like your wife said to. You buy the honeycombs, you come back with some boxes of honeycombs, and when you arrive back in the house, your wife is absolutely furious with you. She's yelling at you about how you can't do anything right, and how you can't listen to instructions and follow directions, and how you're absolutely worthless when it comes to grocery shopping. The reason why? She wanted Apple Jacks, not honeycombs. Meanwhile, you are 100% confident that you heard honeycombs, and even your kids come to your defense and say that she definitely said honeycombs. Plus, why would you pick up honeycombs if she didn't want them, since you don't even like them yourself? Obviously, honeycombs and Apple Jacks sound nothing alike, so everyone is confused, because she clearly said honeycombs, you went and got honeycombs, and now she's furious. Well, that's what happened with this man right here, Kansas City Chiefs head coach Frank Gansz. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that Frank Gansz is one of the worst head coaches in NFL history. The man was an absolute moron to a dangerous degree. He had no idea what he was doing when it came to roster management, especially with managing quarterback controversies. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. He couldn't win games, as in 2 seasons, he compiled a record of 8-22-1, with the Chiefs winning a mere 27% of the games that he was in charge for. That's a stark difference from Marty Schottenheimer, the man who replaced him, and John Malkovich, the man who preceded him and guided them to the playoffs in 1986, 1 year before. Oh, and he also committed stolen valor and lied about his military service in order to get the job in the first place. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But if you really want an exhibit of just how bad of a head coach Frank Gansz was, look at this incident that came in a 1987 game against the New York Jets. Because words have meaning, and apparently, his words meant something completely different and broke the rules of the English language. Because in 1987, he got mad at his player for following his directions. Seriously. This is the story behind one of the dumbest coaching controversies in the over 60-year history of the Kansas City Chiefs franchise. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, we need some context to understand the importance of this game, as well as how this game was going. It's November 15th, 1987. It's Week 10 of the NFL season, or Week 9 if you want to look at it like that, since there was no Week 3 due to the strike canceling games. And we've got an AFC battle on our hands over at Arrowhead Stadium between the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Jets. While this game means a ton for the Jets, who enter at 4-4, tied for first place in the AFC East with literally every single team, as somehow every team in that division was 4-4 through 8 games, for the Chiefs, it doesn't mean anything, as you can tell from the tens of people in attendance. It's been a long and rough season for Kansas City, as after making the playoffs in 1986, man did they crash hard under Gansz. Through their first 8 games, they find themselves at 1-7, having dropped 7 straight games, including their most recent battle, a 17-16 home loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they turned it over 5 times. The Chiefs actually entered this game tied with the Los Angeles Rams for the worst record in all of football, and they enter with not just the worst offense in the league at 133 points scored, or 16.6 points per game, but the worst defense in the AFC at 249 points allowed, or 31.1 points per game, and the worst point differential in the AFC at minus 116, or more than 2 times worse than the second worst differential in the conference. But maybe against a mediocre Jets team, the Chiefs can break this awful losing streak of theirs and get back in the win column for the first time in over 2 months. And so far, the Chiefs were doing just that. Granted, it was an incredibly ugly game, and I don't know how exactly they were doing it, seeing as they couldn't stop the run, couldn't force any turnovers, and couldn't throw the football. But midway through the third quarter, in a field goal fest, the Chiefs found themselves ahead by a score of 9-6. And the man who scored all of those points? Well, you're looking at him right now. It was kicker Nick Lowery, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Lowery is a Chiefs legend, is one of the greatest kickers in NFL history, and by this point in 1987, was an established veteran who was one of the most reliable kickers in football, 2 years removed from a 1985 campaign when he hit a league-best 89% of his kicks and was named an AP First-Team All-Pro. And so far in this game, he was a perfect 3 for 3, hitting a 42-yard field goal in the second quarter, a 43-yard field goal in the third quarter, and most recently, an 18-yard field goal toward the end of the third quarter. He was also doing a good job booting the ball deep, as on a wet, muggy, and rainy day with 16-mile-per-hour winds, his kickoffs were routinely going near the goal line, which was not easy in those conditions. But now, he was about to do something very, very questionable, because after the Chiefs took a 9-6 lead, he was about to kick it off. And before I say what happened next, I have to note one more thing. The Jets might not have been very good in 1987 thus far, and may have been sitting at 500 for a reason. But one thing that they were really good at was doing this. They were unbelievable at kickoff returns and busting one deep. JoJo Townsend was one of the more feared kick returns in football, and it seemed like the Jets busted off 1 or 2 long returns every single game, as you're seeing right now. Say what you want about Frank Gansz, but he's a special teams genius and guru. His special teams unit in 1986 may have been the greatest special teams unit of all time, and he's no idiot when it comes to that. He knew how good the Jets were at returning kicks. And with that, he makes his instructions very clear. Do not kick this ball off deep. We have the lead, and the Jets could bust one free. Just squib kick this ball, put it on the ground, and see what happens. Just squib it, and let's pin him deep. He was telling Lowery and special teams coach Ed Beckman to squib kick this ball. As for what happened next,
Boy, the Rams are the mighty have fallen there, although they're doing all right in St. Louis. Kick to an up back. Marion Barber runs it back, so the Jets will start out with good field position.
That is, that's bizarre. Why the heck would you do that? Why the heck would you pooch kick it in that spot? First off, I don't even agree with the strategy in general to mess around with the kickoff. Sure, the Jets have been a great team at returning kicks, but the Chiefs were holding them in check throughout the contest, as the Jets only averaged 21 yards per return, so they were starting just about every drive off the kickoff inside their own 30. A pooch kick here, though? Well, you avoid the big return, but you allow the Jets to field this ball with great field position already. Now, the Jets are starting this drive at the 37-yard line, starting with great field position, and their best field position off a kickoff all day by a country mile. As for what they do with it, well, they drive right down the field and score a touchdown when Ken O'Brien hits Al Toon for an 18-yard score. It gives the Jets a 13-9 lead, and it basically ends the ballgame, as the Jets tack on another field goal late to make it 16-9. If it wasn't for the pooch kick flipping the momentum completely on its head, the Chiefs may have won this one and ended their streak. Instead, the pooch kick gave them great field position for no reason whatsoever. And Frank Gansz was absolutely livid about this. Nick Lowery deliberately disobeyed him. The best kicker in football went rogue and decided to do his own thing, being insubordinate. Said Gansz after the game on the pooch that cost his team the game, I wanted a squib kick deep. I wanted to put the ball on the ground. That ball could have gone anywhere. As for what he said to Lowery, all he could say was, I'll have to plead X-rated on that. My mother would wash my mouth out with soap if she knew what I said. I wanted a squib kick. I don't have to tell you, that's not what I got. Lowery got an earful. The Chiefs lost this game, and Gansz pointed the finger at Lowery for not listening and for doing his own thing. Which raises the question, why did Nick Lowery do this? Well, get ready for this. Because as it turns out, Frank Gansz definitely did not say squib. He 100% did not say to try a squib kick there. He told Lowery to do a pooch kick. Seriously. He told Lowery to do a pooch kick, Lowery did the pooch kick, and then Gansz got mad at Lowery for doing the pooch kick, because Gansz meant to say squib kick, and Lowery, I guess, should have been able to read Gansz's mind or something. Said Lowery afterwards on why he heard pooch instead of squib? So did Beckman, the special teams coach, because we talked about it before he went on the field. Clearly, it was a miscommunication. Apparently, what Frank meant was squib kick, but he said pooch kick. He definitely told me pooch. I guess I should have figured out he meant squib. And even one Chiefs linebacker said on this, if we can't get our words right, we sure can't keep our plays straight. So Lowery heard the word pooch. He talked about the play with a special teams coach on the sideline during the TV timeout, because just like Lowery, the special teams coach also heard pooch. And even another linebacker on the team came to Lowery's defense and heard the word pooch. Multiple people heard the word pooch. And let's be honest, even though pooch and squib are both one syllable and 5 letters, they are not even the slightest bit similar. It's like confusing milk and Coke. Gansz insisted that he said squib, but multiple witnesses say otherwise, and not a single person, not one, came to Gansz's defense afterwards. So who are you more likely to believe? The side of the head coach? Or the side of the veteran kicker, who has been in the league long enough and is one of the greatest of all time, who has never been a character issue ever in his decade in football, and would probably not just disobey his coach like that, the special teams coach, and the other linebacker? What seems more likely? That Lowery just went off and did his own thing? Or that Gansz said the wrong word and everyone listened to him? That's what I thought. And for Gansz to chew out his player on the sideline and call him out publicly for a mistake that he made, wow. That says a lot about just the kind of man he was. And what's crazy about all of this is that in the days afterwards, even with all the evidence against him, Frank Gansz never apologized. He never said that he was wrong. He believed truly that he was at no fault whatsoever for this, and that it was Nick Lowery that screwed up, because he said the term squib kick, and Lowery and just about everyone else heard the word pooch, even though squib and pooch are 2 completely different terms. I don't know how you confuse the two, but I think we know this. Frank Gansz was an absolutely terrible head coach who had no business being in charge of a football team. I mean, look, John Malkovich wasn't very good, but compared to the man who succeeded him, he was like Vince Lombardi, because that's how bad Frank Gansz was. So what do we learn from all of this? Words are different for a reason, and each word has its own meaning. If you say a word that has one meaning, when you meant to say something else that has a completely different meaning, then don't be surprised when you don't get the outcome that you want. And you can't get mad at the player for literally following your orders and not being able to read your mind in a situation like that. I mean, you can, but you just look like an idiot and a horrible person for doing so. Because on this day in 1987, Frank Gansz, through his own stupidity and stubbornness, pooched away his team's chances of winning this contest. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.